Have you ever looked at the world around you and felt a profound ache, a sense of deep, universal sorrow? What if I told you that this human experience of grief, of longing, of unspoken pain is sometimes mirrored in the most unexpected places? What if, in rare and breathtaking moments, the very heavens seem to weep alongside us, manifesting their sorrow not in metaphor, but in undeniable, tangible tears? Today we dare to step across the threshold of the miraculous, to explore a phenomenon that has baffled scientists, pierced the armor of skeptics, and ignited an unshakable faith in millions across the globe. We dive into the profound, enduring mystery of statues of the Virgin Mary that shed real human tears. Imagine, if you can, the cold, unyielding nature of stone, the inert stillness of ceramic. Now picture that inanimate object, in defiance of all known laws of physics, beginning to weep. Not with a trick of light, not with condensation, but with the very essence of human sorrow. Tears, identical to our own. What does it mean when the divine chooses to communicate through such an extraordinary, almost heartbreaking sign? And why does this impossible sight resonate so deeply within our collective consciousness, stirring something ancient and profoundly spiritual within our very souls? To truly grasp the weight of this enigma, to understand why these celestial tears continue to fall across history, we must journey back in time to a specific, unassuming corner of post-war Italy, where one of the most meticulously documented and widely recognized cases unfolded, forever etching itself into the fabric of faith and science. It was here, in a place steeped in ancient history, that an ordinary family bore witness to an event so extraordinary, it would send ripples through the scientific community and awaken the hearts of a generation. Our story begins in the late summer of 1953, in the ancient, sun-drenched city of Syracuse, a tranquil town nestled on the picturesque island of Sicily. It was here, in a small, humble home, on a narrow, unassuming street, aptly named St. George's Gardens, that something truly unforgettable, something utterly miraculous, began to unfold. Within those modest walls lived a young couple, Angelo Iannuso and Antonina Giusto. They possessed little in the way of worldly goods. Their neighborhood was, in fact, the poorest in the entire city, a place where life was a constant, arduous struggle. Yet they faced it together, with a quiet courage and an inherent dignity that belied their humble circumstances. Antonina was pregnant, and that particular morning, a Saturday, she felt an overwhelming weariness, too weak even to rise from her bed. Her body, burdened by the difficult pregnancy, was tired, aching, and all she could do was rest, gazing idly at the simple bedroom wall. Above her, hanging unassumingly, was a small ceramic statue of the Virgin Mary. It wasn't large, perhaps the size of a school ruler, and it had been a simple wedding gift given just a few months prior. But there was something subtly unusual about this particular statue. In most traditional images of the Virgin, her heart is depicted as pierced by a sword, a poignant symbol of her profound sorrows. This one, however, was different. Mary's heart was encircled by sharp, piercing thorns, and small, delicate flames seemed to rise from it, a powerful, almost visceral symbol of both immense suffering and an unyielding, burning love. Antonina remained in bed that day, utterly worn out by the relentless struggles of her pregnancy. It hadn't been an easy journey. In fact, just that very morning, something truly frightening had occurred. She had lost her sight completely for several terrifying hours, from the first grey light of dawn until mid-morning. It was only then that her vision slowly, painstakingly, began to return. As the shapes around her gradually sharpened, her eyes moved across the familiar contours of the room. And then they froze, fixed upon the small statue of the Virgin hanging on the wall. Something didn't look right. She blinked, rubbed her tired eyes, and looked again. It looked impossibly as though the statue was crying. "That can't be," she whispered to herself, her mind racing. "It must be my eyesight, still playing tricks on me, distorting what I see. Perhaps it's just the way the light is catching it, or maybe my mind, worn from exhaustion and fear, is simply imagining things." But as she stared, transfixed, the tears didn't vanish. They seemed to shimmer, tiny, glistening streams flowing unmistakably from the Virgin's eyes, gently, slowly running down her ceramic cheeks. Shaken to her core, Antonina sat bolt upright in bed. She called out, her voice filled with a mixture of disbelief and awe, trying desperately to make sense of the impossible sight before her. In her own words, she later recalled, her voice still tinged with wonder, "I was stunned. I realized that the face of the Virgin was covered in real tears." Overwhelmed by the sheer impossibility of it, she cried out for her sister-in-law, Grazia, and her aunt, Antonina Iannuso, who were nearby helping her that morning. "I pointed toward the statue," she recounted, "and told them what I saw. At first they didn't believe her. They thought she must still be unwell, that perhaps she was hallucinating after such a difficult, frightening night. But Antonina was insistent, her voice firm with conviction. "No," she pleaded, "something is truly happening, and I am not imagining it." The two women, their faces etched with a mixture of skepticism and growing curiosity, moved closer to the statue. And then they saw it too. There, from the Virgin's eyes, flowed clear, glistening tears, drop by painstaking drop, some even falling gently onto the bedside table below. The small room fell into an immediate, profound quiet, filled only with a sense of overwhelming awe and bewildered confusion. No one could speak. No one could explain it. That Saturday morning, August 29th, something truly holy, something utterly inexplicable, seemed to be unfolding before their very eyes. The statue wept again, and again, not once, but 6, perhaps even 7 times throughout that day. And then, once more that evening, just after Angelo, Antonina's husband, came home from his grueling work. When he walked into the room and saw it for himself, the impossible reality of it, he was utterly overwhelmed. Without a moment's hesitation, he dropped to his knees, his hands clasped in prayer. Words failed him, so he simply prayed, his heart overflowing with a mixture of wonder and reverence. The word spread, not through official channels, but like wildfire through the narrow, winding streets of Syracuse. Neighbors heard whispers of what had happened and began arriving, one after another, drawn by an irresistible curiosity, wanting desperately to see it for themselves. Within hours, a crowd had formed outside the modest home. Strangers, fervent believers, hardened skeptics. They all came, drawn by the impossible, by the sheer audacity of a weeping statue. The next day, Sunday, August 30th, the miracle continued, the tears flowing once more. That morning, a man named Nicola Giusto, a local resident with a passion for film, arrived with his personal camera. He had heard the whispers, the fervent accounts. Now, like so many others, he wanted to see it for himself. But he brought something no one else had, a way to record what was happening for posterity. With his camera rolling, Nicola managed to capture something truly remarkable. The statue, undeniably, in the very act of crying. His grainy, slightly shaky footage, typical of amateur films from that era, showed the tears slowly forming, sliding from the Virgin's eyes and dripping down her serene face. The quality may not have been high, but it didn't matter. What he captured was raw, real, and undeniably powerful. For the very first time, the tears of the Virgin had been caught on film, a tangible, visual testament to the inexplicable. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church, with its centuries of experience and its inherent caution, was paying close attention, but remained, as always, circumspect. It wasn't the first time a statue of Mary had reportedly wept, and over the years many such claims had, sadly, turned out to be elaborate hoaxes. There were people in the world who possessed the cunning and the technical know-how to fake these things, using clever tricks, tiny pumps, or hidden water sources to create the illusion of a statue crying. The methods weren't overly complicated, and some unscrupulously used them to deceive others for attention or financial gain. Because of this inherent risk of fraud, the Church wisely chose not to rush to judgment. Instead, they followed established protocol. They would investigate carefully, meticulously, and with the utmost scientific rigor. On Tuesday, September 1st, just before noon, a special team arrived at the couple's humble home. This was not a random group of curious onlookers. It had been handpicked by the Archbishop's office, composed of individuals whose training demanded precision, not emotion. Among them were a seasoned engineer, a respected parish priest named Father Giuseppe Bruno, and several highly regarded medical doctors. These were men trained to observe with objective detachment, to seek empirical evidence, to look for any possible natural explanation. And what they saw left them utterly speechless. They didn't just hear second-hand stories. They witnessed the tears with their own eyes, forming slowly, unmistakably, in the statue, gliding down the cheeks and falling gently into the Virgin's open hands. There was no trickery, no visible source of water, no sign of tampering, no hidden mechanisms. Just a statue, undeniably crying. These men, trained to dissect and analyze, became first-hand witnesses to something that defied all scientific explanation. And suddenly, what had begun as a private, intimate moment in a poor family's bedroom had become something the Church, and indeed the entire world, could no longer ignore or dismiss. The experts, their scientific curiosity piqued, carefully collected a small amount of the tears, precisely 1 cubic centimeter, and immediately sent it for rigorous testing. The precious liquid underwent multiple chemical and biological examinations in professional laboratories, each test more detailed, more precise than the last. What came back from the scientists, however, left them utterly stunned. The results showed, unequivocally, that the tears were not made of ordinary water, nor any synthetic substance. They were remarkably identical to real human tears, containing the very same proteins, salts, and enzymes that the human body naturally produces when it weeps. Even more surprising, and a testament to the undeniable veracity of the findings, was that every single scientist on the commission, without exception, signed off on the final report. This included Dr. Michele Casola, the head of the panel, a man who, despite his personal, deeply held atheistic views, was forced to admit the undeniable. Science, he conceded in his report, had no natural explanation for what they had witnessed. By the end of the exhaustive investigation, it was confirmed that the statue had cried a staggering 58 separate times. The phenomenon had started on the morning of August 29th and came to a definitive end on September 1st, 1953. But even though the tears themselves had ceased, the story was far from over. The news had spread like wildfire, far beyond the narrow streets of Syracuse, reaching distant towns and even other countries. People began arriving by the thousands from nearby towns and distant cities, drawn by an irresistible spiritual magnet, just to stand before the statue, to be in its presence. And then, something even more astonishing began to happen. Miraculous healings. People who had been sick, who had suffered for years with incurable ailments, claimed to be miraculously cured after praying before the statue, after touching a piece of blessed cotton that had been near it. Word of these astonishing recoveries spread quickly, creating a new wave of fervent belief, and the Church, ever diligent, responded by forming a new medical commission. This one was focused solely on investigating the healing reports. By mid-November 1953, the dedicated team had collected around 300 meticulously documented cases of people who claimed to have been healed. To ensure nothing was exaggerated or misunderstood, investigators reviewed each story with painstaking care. They spoke directly to the doctors involved, meticulously checked medical records, and listened to countless testimonies. Some of these powerful accounts were later published in official church documents, with the full approval of Monsignor Salvatoriglia, the Vicar General of Syracuse at the time. What began with a single statue weeping in a modest home had now blossomed into a mystery that touched countless hearts, moved vast crowds, and even seemed to bring the desperately sick back to vibrant health. The first person said to have been healed was Antonina herself, the woman who had first seen the Virgin's tears. From that moment on, her difficult pregnancy proceeded smoothly, without complication. Not only did she recover her strength, but every pregnancy that followed was also miraculously free of the complications that had plagued her before. For her, the tears were not just a sign. They marked the beginning of a new life, filled with an unexpected peace and robust health. And then came the heart-rending story of little Salvador Alifio, a child not yet 2 years old. Doctors had diagnosed him with a severe, debilitating condition affecting his rectum, a condition that caused him constant, excruciating pain. His parents, desperate and utterly out of options, turned to the Virgin Mary, their last hope, and prayed with all their hearts for her help. After their fervent prayer, something incredible happened. The boy's pain vanished completely, as if by magic, and the symptoms never, ever returned. Another young child, Enza Moncada, had lived with paralysis in her right arm since she was just 1 year old. By the time she was 3, her arm still hung motionless, a cruel burden. One day, someone gently touched her with a small piece of blessed cotton, taken from the statue's presence. Right there, in front of the image of the Virgin, her arm began to move. Tentatively at first, then with increasing strength. For the first time in years. Then there was Caterina Faracano, a 38-year-old woman who had suffered a devastating stroke. It left her completely paralyzed, unable to move or speak, trapped within her own body. Her family, with a glimmer of hope, brought her to see the statue. After she touched the same blessed cotton to her body, something profound shifted. On the way home, miraculously, she found her voice again, speaking haltingly at first, then with increasing clarity. Slowly, strength returned to her limbs. What had once seemed utterly impossible had happened, a testament to a power beyond human comprehension. One of the most moving stories came from Bernardo Tranchida, also 38, a humble worker from Trapani. He had been severely injured in a serious accident on the job, leaving him completely paralyzed, confined to a hospital bed in Livorno, far from Syracuse. One day, lying there, he overheard 2 visitors talking, their voices hushed, about the crying Virgin in Sicily. Curious but deeply doubtful, he listened silently. The woman who had spoken of the miracle, seeing his despair, offered him a small piece of blessed cotton. With nothing left to lose, Bernardo accepted it. That very same afternoon, something extraordinary occurred. He sent a message to his astonished family. He could walk again. Overwhelmed with profound gratitude, Bernardo later moved to Syracuse, not for work, but simply to live near the statue, to be close to the one he believed had miraculously healed him. But perhaps one of the most powerful and scientifically inexplicable stories of healing came from Anna Gardino. She had been sent home from the hospital, given up for lost, with no hope left. The cancer in her body had returned, this time in her rectum, spreading aggressively from a tumor that had already been removed from her uterus. The doctors, with heavy hearts, had done all they could. There was nothing more to try. But Anna hadn't given up. not completely. With quiet, desperate determination, she made her way to the image of the Virgin Mary that so many were speaking about. Standing there in prayer, filled with one last flickering spark of hope, she asked for help. Her husband, by her side, gently pressed a small piece of blessed cotton to the area where the cancer remained. That night, something strange happened. Anna was asleep when she suddenly felt a gentle sensation, as if someone was carefully removing the cotton. In the morning, she woke to find that it had indeed fallen off on its own. Unsure what to make of it, she thought about putting it back in place. But before she could, her 5-year-old niece, with a child's pure innocence, looked up at her and said something unexpected, something that would forever change Anna's life. "Don't worry, Aunt Anna. The Madonna spoke to my heart and told me the miracle already happened." Those words, spoken by a child, stayed with Anna, resonating deep within her soul. And not long after, medical tests confirmed what no one could explain. She was completely healed. The cancer was gone, vanished without a trace. These stories are just a few among hundreds, documented and verified. Some were dramatic physical healings, like Anna's. Others were deeper, quieter miracles, profound changes of heart, spiritual awakenings, and people returning to faith after years of drifting away in the spiritual wilderness. The weeping statue didn't just heal bodies, it stirred souls, awakened consciences, and rekindled belief. And as word continued to spread, more and more people came. The crowds grew larger by the day, a testament to the enduring power of faith and the inexplicable. On September 19th, the Archbishop of Syracuse, Monsignor Baranzini, made a momentous decision. The statue, now a focal point of intense devotion, could no longer remain hidden inside a small private home. It had become a powerful, undeniable sign for thousands, a beacon of hope. He had the image of the Virgin carefully moved to a nearby square, where it was placed with reverent care inside a specially constructed stone niche, giving the surging public a sacred place to gather, to pray, and to reflect on the profound mystery that had unfolded in their very own city. In the weeks that followed, the city of Syracuse became the beating heart of something much larger, much more significant than anyone could have possibly imagined. Throughout September and October, over 1 million pilgrims from every walk of life came to stand before the image of the Virgin Mary. Some came out of simple curiosity, drawn by the extraordinary reports. Others came out of deep, unwavering faith. But all, without exception, left touched by the quiet, undeniable power of what they had seen, by the palpable sense of the sacred. On December 13th, 1953, after careful study, rigorous investigation, and profound prayer, the bishops of Sicily, led by the venerable Cardinal Ernesto Ruffini, officially recognized the miracle as authentic, a genuine act of divine intervention. This momentous event did not fade with time, as so many fleeting wonders do. In fact, the devotion only grew stronger, deeper, more widespread. The people continued to come, year after year, generation after generation, to honor what had happened, to seek solace, to offer prayers. The Church, in response to this enduring faith, made a solemn decision. They would build a place worthy of the miracle, a sanctuary befitting the tears that had fallen from heaven. That sacred place is now known throughout the world as the Sanctuary of Our Lady of Tears. It was officially opened on November 6, 1994, by Pope John Paul II himself, a testament to its enduring significance. The original statue was gently moved from its temporary home in Euripides Square and placed with profound honor on the main altar of the magnificent new sanctuary, a permanent home for the weeping Madonna. Beneath the sanctuary, in a peaceful, reverent crypt, a reliquary holds precious, almost sacred items. small cotton balls and delicate handkerchiefs that once gently wiped the tears from the statue's face, and the very glass tube that was used to collect the identical human tears that had stunned doctors and scientists alike. Today, few people hear about this astonishing story in the mainstream press. When they do, it's often dismissed or even mocked, relegated to the realm of superstition or quaint folklore. But the truth, the undeniable fact, remains. This wasn't an isolated event. Miraculous tears like these have reportedly appeared in many places, at many times throughout history, always carrying the same quiet, profound message. It is a message that Mary sees our suffering, that Mary suffers with us, and that Mary, our compassionate mother, still walks intimately with the world, offering solace and hope. If you'd like to hear more stories of when the Virgin Mary has wept, stories hidden from the clamor of headlines but never forgotten by the faithful, let me know, because the tears of heaven are still falling. Yes, Mary weeps for the world. And when we look around at the sorrow, the division, the pain, the sheer brokenness we witness every single day, how could she not? Her tears are not only tears of profound sadness, of divine empathy, they are also a powerful call, an urgent reminder. Even when we feel utterly powerless in the face of so much darkness, even when it seems like our small individual efforts don't matter in the grand scheme of things, we must never, ever stop choosing good. Because every kind thought, every small act of kindness, every moment of genuine love or heartfelt forgiveness, these are not wasted. Each one is like a precious stone, placed with meticulous care into a greater, unseen foundation, a foundation that one day, with God's grace and our cooperation, can build a new world. A world where love is undeniably stronger than hate, and where light is infinitely greater than shadow. It doesn't matter if you hold great power or live in quiet obscurity, whether you're known by many or by none at all. You are a beloved child of God, and that alone, that profound truth, gives your life incredible, immeasurable value. Each of us carries within us a spark, a small, divine flame that sometimes flickers, buffeted by the winds of the world, but which, miraculously, never truly dies. And though it may feel weak at times, we can choose to feed it, to nourish it, with courage, with truth, with unwavering love. And that small flame, if nurtured with diligence and prayer, can grow into a blazing fire, a radiant inferno that brings warmth, illumination, and hope to countless others. But before we can even begin to dream of changing the world, we must first tend to our own hearts, and we must do it with immense care, with profound humility, and with constant prayer, because true, lasting transformation always begins from within. Protect your soul. Do not open your heart to influences that slowly, subtly wear down your faith, your capacity for love, or your precious hope. Not everything the world offers, no matter how appealing it seems, is truly good for you. Be mindful of the company you keep, the words you listen to, the shows and videos you watch, and the thoughts and images you allow into your mind and heart. Feed yourself with what truly uplifts, with what genuinely inspires. Choose what nourishes your heart, your mind, and your spirit. Things that bring peace, inner strength, and clarity of purpose. Fill your days with what makes you grow from the inside out, because when you become strong on the inside, truly strong, nothing external can truly shake you. The very situations that once would have broken you will now, astonishingly, build you up. The same storms that once knocked you down will now, paradoxically, make your inner light shine even brighter. A flame that is weak can be easily snuffed out by the smallest gust of wind, but a flame that's been fed, nurtured with truth, prayer, and divine purpose becomes an unquenchable fire. and once that fire burns bright enough, no wind, no storm, no darkness can ever blow it out. Instead, the very winds of adversity will only help it rise, higher and higher, illuminating the path for all.